Good afternoon. It's Joyful Christian Mystic Hermit. Just been here reading on different things kidney wise. I had some good news, or I mean, it might be good news. This kidney PA is very knowledgeable, very good. And I'd heard he was very good too. So he thinks it's a fluke thing. But I was taking a creatine powder. It's supposed to be good for muscles, for energy, and for brain function. But I don't think I've been on that long. It started 3 months ago, or within the last 3 months. A blood test 3 months ago did not have this kidney, so he thinks it's not kidney disease. He's thinking it's not. He's thinking it is what's called an acute kidney injury, because my numbers had been very, very good. I had acute kidney injury or failure when I had the septic shock, but it went right back up within 2 days, being in the even in the ICU. So, and he says my fatigue isn't that, so it's the pain, and fatigue. What else? Oh, and I'm just continue eating. I'm not taking the creatine powder anymore. But he said, don't take that, but I can go ahead. Wants me just to eat what I've been eating. So I had a kiwi, and I'll probably have some brown rice or something. I'll just have what I have. And, because he said, don't worry about the potassium or just do that. Cut out the creatine, and I'm having another blood test in about 10 or 12 days. And then he'll look at those, and if it's still bad, then it's something else. Then it's moved into that. He did say that being on pain meds, of course he didn't understand. He had heard of arachnoiditis. I'm the first person he's ever met with it. And I told him, you can't even really go by me with it, because I said, I'm a miracle. God is real. I didn't say God. Should have. I didn't know him. I had my big crucifix on this. I guess he was clued in, at least. This sort of clues people in that I am a believer in Jesus Christ. But so he's right. He did say though that opioids are hard on kidneys over time. He says that could be it. If it is, if I'm starting to get kidney disease instead of just a temporary injury kind of thing that will clear up. So I looked it up, and sure enough, and the main med I was on is the worst. And I'd gone off of it this past Sunday night. I stopped taking it. I'm taking other, and one of the other is stronger, but it clears me up. It totally clears me up. The other is not stronger, but it's also not as hard. So the two that I'm on now, intermittently, are not nearly as bad. In fact, I'm sorry, I have to take some, because my pain has been, I'd have to say, out of control, close to out of control, as far as what I can cope with. I'm just get really, really gritchy and overreacting. That's a signal when I overreact to things I have no control over, that get me all upset. And this morning I woke up, and God, he said, this is who you are, what you become. And Elmer's glue, white Elmer's glue, and how if you have it real thick on your finger or something, you peel it off, it's just sort of this white thin form of your finger. And it was, or maybe like a white surgical glove or something, but it was like Elmer's glue though. My whole body had been like covered in it. I didn't see any of that, but what I saw, what he showed me of myself and said, this is you. It was just my whole body, as if a very thin casing of dried Elmer's glue, but it was soft enough. It was just crumpled in a heap, just crumpled, like tossed on the ground, like a crumpled white sheet, thin sheathing of my body. But it was like Elmer's glue that had dried, that thin white, pure white. So, just there, just crumpled up. The feet, the arms, it was like a, I don't know, just like a case, the casing. And me, I was gone. All my flesh, my bones. It was just this thin casing of what I had been. Like a glove, a body glove, but white, like white Elmer's glue. But it wasn't like falling into pieces or anything. It was all just crumpled up, sort of like a white, but it was pure white. The hospital gloves aren't pure white. This was like Elmer's glue white. But bendable, it was soft, so it just crumpled up. Just there. And yeah, that's me. And I wasn't going to, I posted this video on the story. That was really rather remarkable. But God doesn't mess around. He does not like priests or others, us doing bad things. And in a way, making mock of the Holy Spirit or of Jesus or of God. So we need to take that seriously. And I also was getting just so upset over flashbacks of things. And I just feel like, I'm never going to be healed from it, from the ill treatment I had. From people, too. I haven't even talked about how the people would treat me in the Catholic Church. But I know if the Protestants had known about me, they would have been freaked out. And it wasn't all Catholics. Can sort of go in other extremes. But if it was always parishes where the priest didn't like me, and the people would pick up on that, and then they would turn, because they all just go along with whatever the priest does. And it's a very bad habit. It's not good, because we're not helping the priests any to not try to challenge them to grow spiritually or to do right. Like that, like that video, it was obvious that, and of course, I got the blame. Oh, he was, did I even go back then? I don't think I ever went back after that, because he was on a rampage. Oh, I did. I went to the parish council meeting, and then he wouldn't call on me at all. And the other people wouldn't speak to me. I was like shunned in this meeting of 12 people. And it was just so creepy that they would do that to me, a new member, just because they knew he hated me. So they'll do anything to please the priest. And I suppose any leader, like a king or anyone, people will do that. But priests are supposed to be followers of Jesus. Jesus, like I said, his crown was the crown of thorns. It was a circle of thorns pressed into his head, and his throne was the cross. Jesus did not exalt himself. And he would not have condoned any of his disciples being mean to someone. Of course, he wouldn't have been mean. Jesus, if I'd done something really awful to his church or something. But Jesus was all about truth. So I encourage you in parishes to help build up the parish through truth. And if things are going on that aren't right, 2 or 3 of you minimum should go to the priest and try to encourage him. or if you read get him a book or something, encourage him in his spiritual life, his prayer life. Take on things to do that might help him not have so much to do. If he's, of course, this one is the first one. He loved golf. He was like my dad. He loved golf, and he'd be out on the golf course a lot, but in the spring and summer and early fall. But he did his work. He was a worker. Priests are workers mostly. I think, well, the second priest wasn't in the other parish. He wasn't. He was very slothful. But that's up to us how we're gonna be, and it's up to God to deal with us. So I'm just gonna leave it. I've got to learn to leave it, and not get upset about it. I just have to keep reminding myself that God said, "Go swim on out, and I'll take care of these people. I'll take care of them." And God will take care of us. He'll take care of us when we're good, and He'll take care of us when we're doing bad. He'll take care of us either way. And but I am whipped. I'm worn out from pain. So we'll see. I'm gonna try to get a doctor's appointment and see if I can get on a patch. That's what I need, I think. That's the pharmacist 2 years ago. He says, "Why aren't you on a patch? You've got arachnoiditis." And well, he's never mentioned it, but that's the very best thing I should be on. The other stuff is bad for my kidneys. The one I've been on for over 2 years is bad for me. It's sort of sad, this is just the world, but at least the pain doctor will listen. But it's sad that we have to research things and then say, oh, I shouldn't be on this. I should be on this. So, but with how many patients they have, I guess we can't expect them to know these things. So thankfully, I found from the kidney specialist that my meds are hard on my kidneys to begin with, but I don't have no option. So, and it's okay. I don't mind dying. Just, this guy today says, "Oh, they're killers. And well, of course, he was just going by what the government, all the warnings and everything, and he backed off when he found out I had arachnoiditis. On that, you just what are you gonna do? You can't take that kind of level of pain. You kill yourself with it. It's too much pain. So you find the pain medicine that will do the least damage to your kidney and help handle the pain. So we'll see if I get in anytime soon. So we'll deal with that. But I think that's, I have to remind myself that a month, 6 weeks before I became Catholic, that angel or whoever it was, that I think it was a guardian angel, or not a guardian, it was an immense voice. Maybe it was even God who said, "Lo and behold, by the power of this locution, your sufferings and the sufferings of Holy Mother Church shall be made one." And the sufferings of the church, and have I ever found out the church does have sufferings? Lots of sufferings. And there's much, much good. The core, the everything of it, what Jesus instituted. And even the good over the years, like Lent, having Lent. Jesus didn't talk about that, But that's us honoring Christ and the lead up to his crucifixion. How we can align ourselves and grow and listen to God, and what he wants us to learn. And like today, I learned things that were practical for my temporal life, but God is always taking care of us. But he takes care of us in Lent when we ask him, what do I need to do to learn to grow? So I'm learning that too. I'm learning, stay on top of the pain so I don't react so quickly. So just deep end, go off the deep end. I just get so upset when I see more crud going on, or someone who's to be, a spiritual leader. It's just so involved in the temporal world. And I wouldn't care what kind of politics. It's just being so involved in that I thought, lead us spiritually, lead us. We'll decide what we think is right and wrong. Lead us to know that. Lead us to know Christ. Lead us to Christ more. Teach us what you know from seminary or what, just teach us. We expect a spiritual leader to be a spiritually advanced, not just another temporal human being who's has issues with someone, is trying to poke and make passive aggressive political points. That's just sort of like, and using the media, putting it into the media that it's going to be all over the world, and he doesn't even understand his own people. 54% are in favor. 54% Catholics are in favor of the person that he can't stand, in favor of the policies. So, might not be the person. I mean, we all have our personalities, and it's not person. I think he seems just so, but see, I just get so upset about that. And I have to realize God will take care of them. God will deal with them. If I were there in Rome and could see him, I would go talk with him and say, hey, this isn't what the sheep need. You're going off on your own tangent here. Twice now. He's not even been, well, I don't even know before because I haven't even paid attention to him. And somebody else said, oh, they don't even pay any attention to any of that. And it's true, we shouldn't. But we have them. And especially at the parish level. Don't just blindly follow someone. No, that's why we need to know our spiritual lives, know scripture, know right from wrong. And if you see anyone in the body of Christ, the priests are in the body of Christ. They're not anyplace else. They're one of us. As far as in the body of Christ, and Christ is their head. Just like Christ is he's the head of the church, Christ is. And the priest leads. He has holy orders. He has a vocation to lead people spiritually. Be a spiritual leader. And to administer the sacraments. That's basically in fact, it's mostly just to administer the sacraments. We're also supposed to spiritually lead each other, help each other. That's why, we have to up our game. We have to know what we're doing. It takes study, it takes some research, looking up things, learning, practicing, praying, communicating with God, talking with him. Even if it's one-way conversation for the most part. But then learn to have the quiet where like when I was waking up this morning, there's certain times that God has an easier time getting through to us. In the shower, on the toilet, times where we are most vulnerable. I've read this, when we are most vulnerable, naked, or in a vulnerable position where, we are focused and like in water too, in a shower or soaking in a tub, you can really, because you're not doing anything else and you can't, there's no one around, you're all alone. And the effect of water on the body also opens us up more. It's warm, it opens us up more, and God spiritually then often will speak to us. If you tend to get an insight when you're in the shower or in the bathtub, God's getting through because we're more open, we're more vulnerable. And other times are during the night. There's certain times, even if you're awakened and you think you hear a voice or you've had a dream, don't let that dream leave. Catch it before your consciousness takes over. Midnight and 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., dawn, when you're first waking up, oftentimes there'll be some thought come. That was this morning when I saw and I heard, this is you, this is you. And I saw this crumpled up thin little casing, like white Elmer's glue, that had sort of dried, but it was crumpled, just crumpled. It was my body, the outline of my body, but it was all like a casing, a covering. It was like white skin, but it was just plain and very thin, practically see-through, but it was white. And I thought, yeah, that is me. That is me. I'm just so emptied out, emotionally, spiritually, not from of God, but I am just like with the church and upset. I feel so for people. I love people so much, and I want for them, and I want for me too. And so that this elderly woman came today, and my doorbell's not working. I think my router isn't strong enough. This router modem thing. Whatever. It's because my Ring doorbell isn't working. But the dogs barked, and I thought, oh, and she had left a little note on my door yesterday that she would come at noon, and I had no idea what noon it was, and I didn't know what time if she'd been there later, because I'd been in here, and I evidently the dogs bark, but a lot of times I hear a noise. But she's telling me all her adult children, the dynamics of her family, and one daughter's very ill and has had all these problems, married twice to wrong people, not good people, and is so alone now and confused and sick and doesn't want to deal with the hospital system and all. I don't blame her. With different things, they had her in the hospital, and she must have some kind of a fungus or something that they couldn't find anything. The reason they couldn't find a cause for her lungs, and this is her mother's worried about her, and then the mother's son was ill, and different things in his life that happened. Very caring person, and he married a wrong person first time around, and got taken financially from her. Somebody who had been on cocaine and convinced him that she was clean or something, and it's hard to beat that cocaine thing. And she wasn't at all. She was on it for life, really, but there were junkies who would come and just take things because she didn't pay, and he married this person. So, and she did leave finally then, but he thought, he could help her, and no, usually cocaine addicts, you can't, if they've been for a long time. So that problem. And then another daughter who has a son who has an ailment and different sickness that uh, requires a lot of medical attention. So just, a lot of things that she went over with me, and I appreciate that because I do well praying with details. I can visualize all of her children now, and she has another one that is really doing very well, very well. But people's lives are hard out there, and one of the daughters, she says, is very peaceful and seems to have together. She practices, I think, Buddhism, chanting and drumming and different things. But I pointed out to this older woman that I'd remembered from my journals from pre 1993 how when I accepted and realized that God meant it, that He was my husband. Your maker is your husband, out of Isaiah 54. And when I realized, well, yeah, it still took me a while to get rid of this little flirting daydream of, wouldn't it be nice to have a nice husband? Somebody really wonderful. And then when I would think realistically, especially after the surgery and stuff, oh my goodness, yes, it would help financially, it would help with lifting things, but I could no more handle anyone in here communicating. I was wiped out by the time the woman left. Just, listening carefully and asking a few questions and getting clarification on things so I can really pray for each person's issues and troubles. But my back was just like, I was sick with pain. And felt like that skin, that white skin, emptied out. Just a coating, just a thin layer of coating is about it that's left. So God's warning me, you're wiped out, you are worn out. And I knew it, but that was a good graphic. But at least white. I would have been concerned if I'd been black or red, some dark color, brown or something, real color of dung. That would have been scary. Or red like the devil. But at least it was white. And but maybe he was sort of preparing me too for the fact that my medicines have been really the worst thing for kidneys. I don't think the pain doctor knows that. There's so much to know for a pain doctor. They have so many patients with so many different kinds of pain. And a lot of them can take other meds. That's what this kidney, he was a PA, he was so good. But haven't you tried this and this and this? Because opioids are killers, they're killers. And I didn't even get into it with them how, no, there's nothing more. We've tried every ancillary thing possible. And I didn't bother telling him Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Mayfield Neurological Institute, major medical centers, the Scripps La Jolla, in Southern California. No. Opioids are the only thing that will take the edge off of arachnoiditis. That's it. And Mayo Clinic would definitely know, and Cleveland Clinic would, and Mayfield would know, definitely. So it's just how it is. But I thought, don't let it get to you, because I get this. Some doctors will get, non-pain doctors will get really, really, awful about it and just try to make you feel just horrible. And I did tell him, though. I said, I don't mind dying. I said, honestly, the pain I'm in, and for so many years, I said 41 and a half years. So in 38 and a half years with the arachnoiditis, and 41 and a half years of constant pain from the accident, I said, dying's okay with me. be fine. I said I had a death experience in 87, and it's really quite wonderful. And he did back off then, with this. But I was very glad to know that the med that I was on, that I took off myself Sunday night, because I just thought, I don't think it's helping me. And I wasn't. It really wasn't. And it's the worst for kidneys, the worst. So I don't want to be on, why make my kidneys worse? Because that's painful. It can get painful. But so anyway, he says, just eat your regular diet and do another blood test and see. But I have something I want to read that I thought was good, Augustine. But I'm reminding myself I have to come back to what God does want of me. And that is my sufferings and the sufferings of Holy Mother Church, the Catholic Church, have been made one. That was back in July, early July of 1995. That happened. It was made one. All my sufferings and all the sufferings of the church. And at that time, I thought, oh, the church doesn't have any sufferings. Oh, yes, it does. I've been sharing some crummy things, and there's worse that I could, but I'm going to try not to. I get these flashbacks, and I don't know if they'll ever go away, the flashbacks. And I decided today, embrace them. Maybe God's reminding me more, saying, hey, this is why you're suffering. Your sufferings are helping make up for this crud that's going on in my church, God's church, and our church. And that's why I encourage anyone, if you see something, say something. Go to the priest and talk with him. If he messes up and gets into off topics in his sermon, just kindly talk with him about it and say, we count on you to be our spiritual mentor, our spiritual guide, our inspiration, so that we will seek the spiritual life. We look to you to keep us on, to help us know where the holy narrow pathway is, so we can be on it. And we would like to have book discussions of, any number of books. Like, start with John Climacus, the Ladder of Divine Ascent. It's just like two or three pages a section. You could do one a week, or meet once a week or once a month. That would stretch out a little long. You'd have to do more sections, but once a week, once every other week. There's 30, in a little over a year, you'd have the book done, or do once a week and be done within 6 months. So, or less. Let's see, that would be, 30 weeks would be 31 weeks. We'd have 1 week to read the introduction about his life and or Francis de Sales, or the spiritual combat I mentioned, or the 3 ways of the spiritual life. Or start these groups yourselves. And if people don't come, do it yourself. Just do it yourself. Grow and learn and expand. And build up the church. Build up the church in the spiritual life. So this is my life. This is what I need to do, is to suffer. And I'm going to start really embracing the mystics like John of the Cross. How he died was just awful. And his fellow brothers, his fellow priests and superior did it to him. This breaks my heart that Catholics would treat each other like that. But it happens. It just happens. Humans. But we can alter the system. We can develop, and by ourselves and by asking priests to be spiritual for us, lead us on the narrow path. And so many of them do, and many priests would love it. Not every priest is threatened by you, by a parishioner, and most aren't. I just happened to meet some. But I think part of it too is that was what God wanted me to do. It was my assignment. And then swim out into the deep. I was to skedaddle. I was supposed to go into hibernation and then swim on out. So I have to do that. And I have to have more discipline. I'm praying for more discipline to obey God, what He told me I was to do. Stay out of parishes. Be out in His ocean, out in the ocean where hermits belong. At least the ones that are the authentic, original hermits, the historic, traditional, authentic, traditional hermits. And I have to pray for me that I remember. And then I will myself stay more focused. And I'm going to open up a book box. And I'm going to start getting my books. So, because there's so many good ones that I have. And because I want to have more helpful things to share. I'm not doing any good with these. I think I've shared enough that people realize that things aren't all that good in Denmark. That there can be some human problems go on. Bad ones. But if we stay focused and get on the narrow pathway, we, meaning me, and then from there on, don't look back. Know that God is taking care of all those in the nets, entangled in the temporal. And also we can research things. When did things start? When did this temporal thing start or that temporal aspect? What did Jesus say about these things? What did He say? And I guess it's okay just to ignore that we have this worldwide leader in the Vatican. Oh, it's probably best because I thought even if I wanted to try to say something to Leo, how do you even get a hold of him? Some secretary would read it and dump it because they had already shut down comments to their site. So many people were writing in and they didn't want to hear it. So they just turned off the ability to leave comments. So, people are trying. At least I was encouraged by that there were so many people that were outraged by his politicking. And with me, it isn't like it's this or that political party. With me, it's just that he's involved like that. When we need spiritual guidance. Leaders come in this country, they come and go every 4 years, sometimes 8, but in the Senate, it's every 2 years. So it's Our souls are forever. We are for eternity. And that's why the spiritual life is so important. And learning pure love and the suffering that goes with it. But I'm a victim soul. And it's hard for me to really accept, I guess, at some levels, because I'm still very human. And so, of course, I'm going to be upset by things that go against the church. Actually do. Jesus wouldn't like that. Jesus wasn't like that. He said, do your dues to your government, but follow me. So, in my vocation as a hermit, he has this vocation for my good. And part of it is I focus on the suffering. I'm a victim soul, though I'm a primary victim soul. That means that the suffering is pervasive and has been. It's not like I can, get too busy about too many other things. I can't go out and have a job. I'm not out in the world. It's the kind of suffering that keeps you out of the world more. So I have to really watch it with checking on the news, because I can get too caught out in the world that way too. So I have to be very careful with that. And I'm reminded of that now, but got to keep the pain under control too. Oh, well, let me read this. It's on humility. I thought it was very, very good. St. Augustine, late 4th century, early 5th century. And he was the bishop of Hippo, North Africa. He was in North Africa. And then he was a friend of St. Ambrose. He was baptized by St. Ambrose and became a priest through St. Ambrose, who was in Milan. And his mother had come to Italy, and Augustine had too for a while. So his mother was she prayed and prayed and prayed for Augustine, never gave up that he would come back to, she had reared him as Christian. The father was not. And St. Augustine lived quite a raunchy little playboy life. In fact, he had a out-of-wedlock son, and a girlfriend, obviously, and didn't marry her. But he converted to Christ. He came back to Christianity. He had a reconversion, and so he got baptized then by St. Ambrose. And his mother, she died shortly after. It was like her work was done, because she had prayed and prayed and prayed for him to come back to Christianity. And I think the child died or something. Maybe even the young woman might have too. I don't know, but so, God has his arms open for whomever. But there are worse sins than sexual sins. The sins of the flesh are not good, but when priests do things that are sort of using the Holy Spirit to pull a ruse, to deceive his parishioners, obviously God did not like that, did not like it at all. And then it was also obvious that God did not really intend for me to be on the parish council. He just utilized me, knowing I would obey. That when this man appeared to me, who I knew, and told me so seriously, take my place on the parish council, and there was the can there, and I found a piece of paper, and my son had a pen, and I thought, yeah, I've got to do this. Something's going on. You know, it isn't just every day that I have somebody from the other side appear to me like that with an important message. And I also thought, well, what are the odds? So many people were putting their names in to be on the parish council. And I had no clue of the deception that had been going on for years doing that, saying the Holy Spirit was selecting. So that crushed me when I found out. I love the church that much. I love Christ's church. I don't like it when human beings do bad stuff to it. And I am a sinner. So I know I have hurt Christ's church. And I suffer for it then. But that's my job, is my sufferings go for the church. Mostly, I think. I haven't had God ever tell me that they're being utilized for anything else. I have offered them for other things. And I offered if God could somehow use me, my sufferings are something to help free the people in Iran and get that all finished, because something needed to happen, and those people deserve freedom. So, and instead of some serviceman dying, take me, or more suffering. I don't know. I guess the more suffering would be if my kidneys end up being diseased rather than just temporarily damaged. So, and he explained the difference of how they can be damaged, and then because they were damaged when I had the septic shock. So that cleared up real fast. So St. Augustine here. Everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. But even that part, I would just like it to be, everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will just remain humble. But Jesus was so sweet. He meant, in heaven, on the other side, that's a heavenly reward. And maybe on earth, some people really appreciate humble people. A lot of people will, though, depends on a culture too. It can be a cultural thing, that a meek and mild and humble person, some will think, oh, that's just a weak person. That's not good. You got to be macho. You got to be strong. You got to be a fighter. And some will take advantage of a humble person. Think that they're that way, but it doesn't mean that you're weak. Humility does not mean weakness at all. So, people get that wrong sometimes. They just assume. But other people really admire true humility in a person. And their admiration is an earthly thank you from them. Thank you for being humble. My mom and dad were very humble people, and I thank them for that. And that's one of the conflicts that my cousin has with her mother. Her mother tended to be a little bit more on the proud side. Mostly, I think she's very outer appearance person. And I think the fact that they grew up in a large family, 8 children, and their dad had just been elected to something in the town and had a restaurant, and they were doing well. He could afford his 8 children, but he died the week before the stock market crash. So and my aunt, who's alive now still, was the youngest. She was 4. And it affected my mom. Their status in life did. But my mom didn't let it affect her. She wasn't big into outer appearance. She wanted, present yourself well, do the best you can with what you have. But she wasn't vain or anything like that. She wasn't excessive on her looks, or she was beautiful. But her youngest sister had that bug of, and would notice people, but she would notice really, she's very positive, but she notices beautiful people and beautiful clothing, beautiful fabric, but she liked interior decorating. Part of it's her interest and her talent. She's very talented that way. But she did have a little bit on the far end of it. And so my cousin, though, sort of rebelled against her mother and did a little bit the opposite on purpose, So that isn't good. But my cousin's the one that mentioned that she has learned humility through her suffering. So my cousin now, she's very spiritual, very humble, and she's doing better with her mother. Not there yet. She loves her as her mother, but doesn't like her at all. And I just keep praying that she'll come to see her mother's good points, of which there are many, 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 many. So humility, false humility isn't, but true humility on earth, some people will really appreciate it. Like, I appreciate my cousin's humility, and I can tell through her 18 years of terrible suffering, of inconvenience, of losing mobility. She doesn't have pain, but she has a lot of other issues that I don't want. It's suffering. It's suffering. And none of us would want to be relegated to a wheelchair. And she's had some very serious touch and go surgeries, 3 of them, I think 2 or 3, where she was very close to death. The first 2 were when she had her amputations. She had gangrene. It was terrible. And, she probably only knows why she would let that go. She was in a very upset state over something in her life, and just didn't go to the doctor, didn't manage her diabetes, and she nearly lost her life twice with that, and then something happened with her intestines. So she has a colostomy now, and of course regrets that, but she never complains. She's very strong. She's very humbled by it, and meek and mild and loving, very loving person. My goodness. So, but the thing with her mother's a bugaboo, but she has accolades. People really admire her for her humility. So that can happen. And then, but God's basically saying, we will get our reward in heaven. Our humility here. If those, who are humble will be exalted. So Augustine says here, it is vain for you to rise early, says one of the Psalms, Psalm 126. Such were the sons of Zebedee, who had already selected a position for themselves. See, they had arisen early, they'd thought through what they wanted ahead of time, One at his right, one at his left, and they did that before they had undergone humiliation in imitation of the Lord's passion. Because they were both, the sons of Zebedee who was that, Andrew and James, I think. They were both crucified also. But they had asked Jesus, and their mother had asked for them too. Can you I want my sons to have special positions with you. Moms will do that. We want our best for our kids. So they wanted to rise before the light. Peter rose before the light too. Light with a capital L, Jesus. Peter rose before the light too, when he advised the Lord not to suffer for us. The Lord, in fact, had spoken of his saving passion and humiliation, and Peter, who only a short while before had confessed that Jesus was the Son of God, was seized with dismay at the thought of Jesus' death and said to him, "God forbid, Lord, save yourself. No, that will never happen to you." And that's from Matthew 16. He wanted to rise before the light, give advice to the light, rise up, make himself important to the light, or suggest to God, like be presumptuous. That's what Augustine is pointing out of rising before the light. Give advice to the light. But what did the Lord do? He made him rise after the light by saying to him, "Get behind me. Get behind me so that I can walk before you and you can follow. Take the road that I am taking instead of wanting to show me the road on which you yourself want to walk." I'm going to read that again because this is important. Get behind me, so we get behind Jesus so that Jesus can walk before us and we can follow. So we can learn from Jesus because he always knows best. See, that's like me going back trying to help people in ways that I have no means of really helping them. No one's going to listen to me anyway. God said he was going to take care of them, for me to go on out and swim in his ocean of mercy and love. Learn, swim out there in the deep. Learn greater faith, he's saying. To Dumb. That's my name now. It's Dumb, because I have a single syllable name, and it reminded me when this man was saying, Dumb, take my place in the parish council. So anyway, he wants Dumb to get out there and swim and learn faith and faith in him. Trust him that he's taking care of his church. All I'm just supposed to suffer. My sufferings are to be one, have already been made one. They were already made one with the church back in the first part of July of 1995. My sufferings and the sufferings of Holy Mother Church. That's what he asked of me. That's what he's utilizing of me. He had this, I think it was Gabriel announce it to me. It was a powerful voice. Either that or God himself with a very powerful voice. It was very authoritative. And other things I am to follow. Take his lead. And that includes, if getting into my hibernation. He called me to be a hermit in 1999, I think it was September 12th, whatever is the date of the exaltation of the Holy Cross. I think it's September 12th or 13th. That was the day that my hermit life began. And then I did vows. I did practicum for like 15 months, and my vows were December 29th of 2000. So, that's, what am I doing, leaching back out into the temporal and getting all upset But even my upset, though, is suffering. It's a suffering. So in hindsight, I don't want to do it again. I don't want to try to open up the nets and help people that are God is taking care of them. God will help Leo. And we don't know in what way. And that's not for me to find out. I'm supposed to follow Jesus, take the road that Jesus is taking instead, and wanting to show me the road. Jesus wants to show me the road on which I am to walk. And same with you guys. He wants to show you the road in which we are to walk, and that he wants us to walk. And I already know it's keep learning pure love, the suffering with it. And it can be suffering to learn these things, too. Why then, sons of Zebedee, sort of announcing to us too, we're all sons of Zebedee in a way, do you want to rise before the day? That day was capital D, D-A-Y. That is the question we need to ask them. They won't be annoyed, since these things were written about them, so that we too might know how to keep ourselves from the pride they fell into. Why want to rise before the day? It is in vain. Do you want to rise before being humbled? See, the day is the day of our reckoning, the day of our death, our judgment. Why do we want to, come before that, think we're that great, that, we can do whatever? It is in vain. Do you want to rise before being humbled? A dying to ourselves also is the day. Dying to ourselves, the day of our humbleness, of being humbled. But our own human death is the ultimate in being humbled, because we're really dying to ourselves then. Maybe that's what God meant. He was showing me my little shell, my little white Elmer's glue crumpled up little shell of my skin. That's all that was left of my body. He wants to humble yourself. Maybe he was telling me that too. I hadn't seen this yet, but it would make sense, because he wants me to pay attention to what he shows me, like when I'm first waking up, and not to forget it and to put together the pieces of what he means. It's fun with God because sometimes he'll give us cues and little clues also, and symbols and metaphors, or just one word or something. And then we it's like a fun puzzle that we have to try to figure out. And then throughout the day, he gives more clues on little hints and tips on what it also means, and fills it all in. And it's a way of engaging back and forth. It's like lovers. He's, calling me midday from work and saying, have you figured it out yet? Here's another clue. Read this by St. Augustine in the afternoon and think about that. So, your Lord himself, he who is your light, was humbled so as to be raised. Hear what Paul says. Though he was in the form of God, he did not regard equality with God something to be grasped. Rather, he emptied himself, taking the form of a slave. Oh, this is coming. This is exactly right. See, that shell of myself, that thin, what was like sort of like the thin, what are those gloves called? Those real thin ones that the doctors wear and the nurses wear. They're blue often, but they have white ones, but they're sort of a yellow white. This was white, pure white. And it reminded me of the thin Elmer's glue that peels off. But it was It was a shell of myself. And I was emptied. See, I was totally emptied out of me. And I was just in a little heap on the ground, a little clump, sort of just flopped there and sort of wrinkled up, taking the form of a slave. He emptied himself, taking the form of a slave. God was giving me that image, and he said, this is you. What he wants of me is coming in. Coming in human likeness, Jesus humbled himself, becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Because of this, God greatly exalted him. So this is what God was telling me this morning, in advance of reading this even. And there might be more about it later. But I need to accept this suffering, humble myself, because I wrote to somebody, a dear friend this morning, writing about, I don't think I'm ever going to be healed of these awful things that happened. The different, terrible, how people would treat me, priests, and the more good I would do, the more sometimes they would be more angry and resentful. And the more I would try, and the more I would try to use my education and what I had learned about program development or writing these grants, and I didn't even tell you that, how they misused the funds. And then I was the one, since I wrote the grant, even though I'd been kicked out of the parish and out of the soup kitchen, I got them $220,000 from an Eli Lilly grant for schools, for computers, for the school. But the children were supposed to write the saint notes and practice their computer skills doing that. And they never did. They never followed through. That principal hated me so much. And instead of getting computers for the children, he bought them for the staff. Laptops, things, and iPads and things. And for himself, this man did, this principal, just blew that money. And he used the money for, I'm not sure what all, but the kids didn't get the computers. And so at the end of the money was used up. And then with Eli Lilly, I was the one, since I wrote the grant, and I had to give a review. And that was my hometown, and it went back, I think, 4 generations since 1837 of my ancestors, and on both sides of my family. And I wasn't going to lie. I had to give an accurate accounting, and I had to say that they blew it. They didn't use the monies as the grant was written. And I knew the woman who was in charge of it was called it was with the Eli Lilly Corporation, but it was a Heritage Fund grant. And the woman in charge of the Heritage Fund, she knew me personally for years. And I said, I'll tell the truth. And I said, I'm so sorry that they did this, because I'd been kicked out. So normally the person who would write the grant, I would have been supervising it throughout the year. But I had been run out. I had been exiled. So they lost, and the Eli Lilly and the Heritage Fund, they were furious. Not at me. They knew, because all over town what had happened to me with that priest saying all these things from the pulpit. But by the next summer, that was the 9th, 10th and 11th of September in 1999 were those sermons, and word spread all through the town that I'd been run out of the soup kitchen that I had started, and that God had started, but people have a figurehead with it. So, but but the priest had used my name and just vilified me from the pulpit. So I was out, and I just had to assume and hope and pray that they were using the monies properly. And they weren't. By the end of the year, $220,000 was gone, and the students didn't get it. This shyster principal had absconded with quite a bit, plus the staff, whoever wanted to, he would bought favors by buying laptops, and I don't know what he did with the rest of the money. But I had to report that no, it wasn't. The conditions of the grant were not followed. So then the bishop found out about that, and he was angry. He didn't know me at all. He didn't ask, but had a big ordeal at this publishing company, and where the bishop was there having some kind of a meeting, and my name got ripped to shreds through that too. But God knows, and the people with the foundation knew that I would be honest. But it broke my heart to have to be, and I was horrified when I found out, when I did the review and found out what they had done with all that money. So it was a big embarrassment to the churches, to the Catholic churches in town, that they would do that with their school children's grant money that I'd written and got the money. Got them. It could have really helped the children's education for the Catholic private school. Isn't it something? See, it's sad. But the gal that I know, the friend who, because she says, oh, she was heartbroken too, because she knew I really loved the soup kitchen. And she knew, of course, I'd been kicked out, but she says, no, but it's, Eli Lilly, it's in the thing. Whoever writes the grant has to do the review and submit the paperwork. And so I had to do it. I had to expose them. And she knew it was hard for me. But you can't let wrongs go like that. And then I had to think about my family, too. My parents were alive, and their reputations, my reputation, which didn't matter to me, but my parents and their name in their own town where they grew up and all, and my aunt and uncle, my judge uncle, to have a crime. It was a crime to take that money and not use it for what it was given, what it was won for. It was a big honor that they got that grant. And so there's a sorrow, and I suffered. I really felt bad. And then I took the brunt with the bishop and the publishing company, and then the Eli Lilly and the Heritage Fund of our community said the Catholic Church will never, and the school will never, ever get another grant from us, ever, in the history. And that was hard. I felt terrible. But they told me, oh, we know it wasn't you. They all knew. Well, I don't think Eli Lilly knew that I'd been, exiled, run out, but I wasn't going to do the grant. They were so rude to me. I'd gone to their initial meeting. They'd put it in the bulletin with a religious sister at that time was a School Sisters of Notre Dame. She was the principal, and they were getting a new principal. She was retired. Her mother house had called them back. They weren't no longer going to service the school. There were only 2 sisters left. But, so they were going to hire a principal and all. and they needed this grant. They were going to try for a grant. So I thought, well, this sounds interesting. I'd been a projects assistant director at a district, so I went to the meeting, and they, other people were there, including my tax accountant's wife was there, and she was a volunteer in the school, and some parents were there of the kids, and I made a suggestion, just one suggestion, and the sister really let me have it. And she says, just what are you doing here? See, because she already knew. It was before I was kicked out of my own little project, but she knew that I was not favored by the priest, nor the other priest, and that I was different, and she was very rude to me. And she says, and just who do you think you are? What do you know about anything? And I said, well, I don't ever go by my title, but I am Dr. Dumb so-and-so, and got a doctorate from USC in ed administration, and specialized in organizational leadership, and I was a assistant projects director at a Southern California large school district. And so I handled grants, school reviews, program reviews, and wrote grants, and supervised grants, implemented them, put them into place. So I said, that's why I asked the question and had a thought on it. That's all. I said it nicely, but I laid it out. I mean, really, other people were asking questions and weren't attacked for it. What were they doing there either? So, and made suggestions. So I said, excuse me, and left, because well, so I left. I thought, I don't need to use my pain to be sitting here in these chairs, So I left and was busy. I had my stuff to be busy with. And in fact, I had already had this idea that I knew they would get a grant with, because it needed a hook. And I knew, I know how this stuff works. They needed a hook, something that would stand out from every other grant they were going to get from our community. Had to be something to do with service in the community also. That would hook it. And I thought, the soup kitchen, because it was getting a lot of attention. It's already been going for over a year then. And it was around St. Thomas Aquinas feast day. And I thought, I know he'd help me, because he's patron saint of schools and I think school children or something like that. Education of children and learning and that stuff. And I thought, he was such a writer, a great writer. And I thought he'd help me. I knew he would. I'd already asked him if he would help me write it. But okay, no, we've got it. In fact, I think she said something like, we've got this covered. We've got this. We have our own ideas. So, all right, that was it. Then I'd sold my house. It got to be May, end of May. I'd sold my house. I was packing up. I was doing the soup kitchen had grown by leaps and bounds. And I had to move into that little ramshackle place that was going to be a tear down for a parking lot. And my daughter's graduating from college, and it's a big lot going on in my life. And the sister and the tax accountant's wife came, begging me. Well, we really don't know what we're doing. We need you. Would you write it for us? I said, I had boxes out. I said, I have to get out of here. I have to move. The house is closing. I have to get into this other place. the weekend's coming up. I'll have the soup kitchen stuff to do. And I said, I don't have time now to write a grant for you. And we'll do anything. We'll do anything. And they started to cry. The tax accountant's wife, and I knew her, and I liked her. I liked the sister too. I had never had anything to do with her before, but I didn't appreciate just being, shunned again and treated so rudely when they weren't other people who were just there to give ideas or to find out about it. It was nothing, no big deal. I didn't think that I should have been just so abused, but but Sue started, the wife of she started crying right there in my living room, and and begging, and then the religious sister apologized too. She says, I'm so sorry for how I treated you, and we so need you. We have nothing done. I said, do you have anything started? Do you have an idea of what you want? And no, we need your help. We need your help, please. And we need it in 2 days or something. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I said, well, wish you would have come even 2 months ago. I said, I got to move and pack. But I did. Of course, when Sue cried, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I prayed. I asked St. Thomas Aquinas. I said, oh, I really need your help now. Really need it. I had this little teeny laptop. It's a little 13-inch thing. And I lay there on that sofa. It had a slanted sides to it. And that thing just rolled out of me. God wrote that grant. I am not kidding you. And then I had I said, but I'll need you guys to, if you don't mind, please, once I get it written, I need you to, we had to have so many copies. And I said, I want it packaged professionally. I want it to look so sharp that just the look of it, that they'll say yes to this. So, because I said, I have a binding machine, I have binders, I have cardstock, and I said, we'll have it printed very nicely, and a title page and the cover of it and all. We'll use the Soup Kitchen logo that an artist from the publishing company had made for us. It was really a nice logo. And for the open door, because I said, that's going to be the hook. And the students are going to learn the computer skills. And they can use it for everything else they need. All they'll need to do is, do a few things for the open door. Write the saint notes and type it on the computer. And research some things and, stuff like that. Learn computer skills, but they'll be helping out. And even come and help do deliveries and things to interact more with the soup kitchen, and they can decide the names of the soups and the saints and do the write-ups and they were going to have to type up the newsletters. I had one for the volunteers that I was doing, and I had the Call to Suffer one for all the recipients, and it started getting I was getting requests from different places. It was spreading. I don't know how many I was sending out. My mom even sent money to help me pay for the mailing, because that newsletter was really, people loved it. I have all the copies, and so that took me a lot of time writing all that stuff. So all those kids had to do was to set it up. They would learn graphics that way, and how to do columns and set up a newsletters, and the volunteer newsletter was great. I called it the peephole, but peephole, and a little view of what the volunteers were doing. It had all the stats from every weekend of how many quarts of soup went out, and I would have stories about different families that we served or elderly people their stories and just different stats. And I would feature volunteers, called it Saints of My, a different volunteer each week, highlight that person. And that really kept, see, that stuff like that keeps up your volunteer base because it builds community and it builds up the esteem of the volunteers. And all that stuff the kids could type, that would ease up my life a lot. And print it and collate and do all that. So, but that thing looked good. And when we got it, the lady who we won that, and all these big companies in the town and other organizations were writing grants, and we won it. And she said when we all saw the grant that you wrote and how it was even bound and packaged, and they said we just set it aside right away. We knew it was going to be great. And then though she was saying then when it's they didn't do it, they didn't have the kids do it. What a disappointment to them too, that the people who read the grants and thought what a wonderful thing for the kids to be involved in this soup kitchen project in this way and learn their computer skills doing it and help being very I needed them. We all needed them. Because even the volunteers on Sunday morning going over and trying to get the get all the soup the saint notes in with each delivery person, and so they just so blew it. It was so sad. But there's a case of a suffering that was so great, and it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do was to write that honest review, truth, and I got the brunt for being honest. I guess they expected me to lie, and nothing happened with the principal for stealing that money, or the staff. I guess they didn't feel bat an eye about taking computers free and just taking them. They were their computers then. And I don't blame the staff. It was nice to have the staff to have computers, but the kids got nothing. They didn't have the computer teaching time. They never did that. None of it. None of the grant was followed. And it was heartbreaking for me. And then I had written a grant also. The publishing company and I had written a grant for an icon machine. There's a big printer that we could print our own stuff then. And the bishop got so angry. He says, "Who is this woman? Who did this? Who got this grant? Who had this happen? That, shamed us and all." And he didn't care that I was honest and did the right thing by God and humanity and the children. And he wasn't mad at the principal or at anyone who didn't follow through with the grant. And so we were going to get a grant for the machine. Had it all set up. The man from Wisconsin or Minnesota came and showed me the machine so we were going to get it paid for because it was like $16,000. No, it was $21,000. The company had a grant that they were going to give us for $5,000 because this man really liked what we were doing. He was really impressed with the soup kitchen and our notes and our newsletters and things. The salesman for the company, the Icon company. I don't know if they make Icon printers anymore, but so you could print lots of stuff for not much money and big printing drums and then we were going to let the parish use it too, but the bishop got so angry about what had happened that blaming me though. He didn't care that It was a shame, and Eli Lilly Company was involved, and you know, cheating them, and all these other places in town, the other organizations, not for profit, or it was a not for profit, that they didn't get it. They would have been honest and used it properly. So, and then he said, they're not getting this, the publishing company grant. So we didn't get that. So I had to call the man in Minnesota, the salesman, and say, well, this happened and we can't, and he can't afford it. And he called me back and he says, the people here are so upset with what's happened to you, because you've done, this such a wonderful thing you're doing for your community, and all the volunteers, the company's giving it to you. So, but it was only maybe like 3 months later, and I was run out anyway. So, and then the next year, though, they found out this stuff about the principal, and he was fired. But no one ever said anything to me, no, nothing ever. And that's as part of the suffering that I had to undergo. So what I want to say is the things that I say about, it seems horrific, and it is. I think a lot of it is that it provides suffering for me, to suffer for the church, and God had to show me. You guys could be in a parish and there wouldn't be anything wrong, and the priest would be great. It was just, God had to show me these things so that I would feel enough, so that for the rest of my life, I would know what my suffering was going for, and how Jesus suffers these things that are dotted around in isolated incidents. But with me, he had to have it be really everything, just bad, 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 so that I would understand the need for my suffering in reparation, and why my sufferings and the sufferings of the church had been made one. So that now when I suffer more, and it's even just being reminded of it, helps me. Like with my kidney thing, and the added pain that I'm having as the arachnoiditis progresses, I have my focus more of the suffering is needed for the church worldwide. It's my sufferings and the sufferings of the church in making reparation for the wrongs that are in isolated incidents. So it's not like, you would join the Catholic Church and it would just be all this bad stuff. That was for my benefit. The one thing after another, after another. And but yeah, my name was not Dumb then, it was Mud. And worse, after I had to give the honest assessment, they hadn't used the grant. They'll never, ever get another. Ever, ever, ever. And it's a shame, because it sullied the Catholics in that town, and innocent Catholics. It sullied the ones who did it, the principal. And I sometimes wonder if he was maybe he wasn't even a Catholic. Probably saw that ad and came, and he was just he was evil. That man was evil. Talk about a socio-psychopath. Lie and double life. Wasn't even an administrator. Had no background. But he was a talker. He could talk it up. And he had me fooled right at first. Just at first, the first day that I met him. And he didn't have a place to stay, and I offered him a place. But he left within a week because I was on to him. I was on to him like within the first day. And he was very uncomfortable then. And so he packed up, and because I was right across the street in that place, and they had the whole upstairs he could be in. It had been a duplex. But so he rather stayed in the convent. There was only one religious sister there. But they were really fooled. And I didn't want to say anything because he was there, and I thought, well, wait and see, give him a chance, But I was glad he got out of my house, my dwelling, my roof from out from under, because I didn't, my son, we both realized he was no good, creepy, icky, and he sure proved it. I never said anything to him like you're a creep. But that was when he started blowing his cigar smoke right up in my face. He'd get up real close and, you know, and I like it hot. I like fights and I'm going to win, and you're going to burn. So, anyway, strange. I certainly do. I'm the lady who's lived too long. So, okay, that's it. But humility, it was all very humbling. I will say that, to just be so vilified with, what I was trying to do. And then it wasn't long after, what was it? All this, 2000, by 2000 and, was it 2005? I had to turn, 2006? 1999, I was this horrible person, and people had been writing letters to the bishop, that saying things about me. It was when I was in that community of hermits, and we were to wear a habit. And that taught me so much. I'd never be in a community of hermits. Well, we weren't living with each other. We were in our own homes. Great idea. It was a great concept. But she didn't have her ducks in order and she had a lot of, so she wasn't, she folded after I got out of it, but she got so mad that I was getting out of it. And I said, but you don't have things organized. I said, it's not ever going to pass muster with my bishop. And I realized later, well, it wouldn't have anyway, because if he realized who I was, he wouldn't have. But they were confused. Then the next thing, he was the one thought that I was this mentally slow street person. And then they thought that there were two of me, that I was this horrible person from my hometown that they'd heard so much bad about. And that I was in this nice lady who lived there. I'd moved to the city and was in the cathedral, and this wonderfully nice person. And so they had me all these different people. They were so confused. And I finally had to straighten it out, because it got down to the time where I was going to have to let them know about their priest after I had enough facts on them, enough truth and backup for it. Proofs. I needed proofs. And it took a while to get enough that would be viable. You just can't go on accusing somebody of stuff, a priest especially. So, they could accuse me without even knowing who I was. So, it's humor. I mean, I can laugh about it. The whole thing is just craziness, isn't it? But it's all suffering, and it just shows me the depth of what Jesus goes through of his suffering. Imagine how Jesus feels. If I'm upset by these things that were going on, how does Jesus feel about it? And his church, so I really have no room to be upset compared to how Jesus is upset, how Jesus suffers. And look what they did to him. I haven't been physically crucified at all. So, and those were his people. But he spoke up. He was Jewish. He took those rabbis to task. He spoke truth to them. He wanted them to improve and straighten up and fly right. And he had the courage to say so. And they don't like it. And they killed him for it. So, but humility is the threshold of the faith, and humility is the best thing to have. It's the gift. It's the gift. Humility, humility, humility. So with that, I'm going to go and stop my yap, and I'm going to try to work on the door jamb. I've started working on it. God grant us his pure love, and God grant his church, his holy church, pure love. May our church be pure love. And dear Lord, please help me to keep a grip on these situations. It's your church, Lord. I love it. We all love it. At least some of us do. I do. And I will try to keep a grip and keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Keep swimming. I gotta do. And keep my equilibrium. So, and not offend people and upset people. I was worried about that last night, that I was, by telling about the what caper was this, the one that I wrote, the situation regarding the, oh my goodness, there have been so many. Oh yes, the roofs of the parish council. Take my place on the parish council. Dumb, take my place. Okay, and wow, look what that uncovered. But that wasn't anything like the grant not being followed. So that is just always, but truth, following Jesus, follow his path, follow it right to the cross, follow it right to Calvary, and accept being crucified. Follow Jesus to his death and to our deaths. Follow Jesus all our lives. It's okay. And stay true to his church, Christ's church, and how he instituted it. And don't let what other people do get to you like they get to me. It's life. It's life. We're not perfect. But if we can, let's build things up and help people, help priests to seek the holy narrow pathway and lead people, be mentors, and us too. Let us learn what we can and grow in holiness. And I've had to accept that being honest is part of truth. It's truth, it's being honest. And as long as I am striving in truth and striving to encourage others to do right and to help build up the body of Christ, all of us, including priests who are part of the body. Pure love. God bless his pure love in us.